Brazil exposed more than just Ferrari's weaknesses. It revealed a civil war erupting inside Maranello. Did Lewis Hamilton's race engineer just drop a coded message after his DNF, aimed directly at Ferrari's leadership? We're breaking down the fallout, the engineer's words, and what Colapinto's crash really triggered with sources no one else is showing you. And if you're serious about Formula One without fluff or bias, hit subscribe right now, because this is the kind of truth Ferrari won't want you to hear. There are moments in Formula One where a result doesn't just shake up the championship, it exposes the inner workings of a team. Brazil 2025 was one of those moments. For Ferrari, it wasn't just a race gone wrong. It was a mirror reflecting structural failure, internal distrust, and a fragile relationship between its drivers, management, and leadership. The red cars may have left Sao Paulo without a single point, but what they truly lost was control of their own narrative. The Grand Prix at Interlagos was supposed to be a turning point. After a promising weekend in Mexico, with Leclerc back on the podium and Hamilton finally showing pace in qualifying, the Scuderia believed they could fend off Mercedes and secure second in the constructors' standings. Instead, they left Brazil behind both Mercedes and Red Bull, and with their internal politics now laid bare. The double DNF, caused by a first-lap disaster and a mid-race structural collapse, was only the beginning. Lewis Hamilton's race unraveled not with one mistake, but a chain reaction. A first corner bump from Carlos Sainz destabilized the rear of his SF25. Then, just moments later, Hamilton collided with Alpine rookie Franco Colapinto in a defensive move that destroyed his front wing. What no one knew at that moment was that debris from that incident would get sucked under the car, tearing open the floor and compromising the aerodynamic base of the Ferrari. Engineers later revealed he was missing up to 40 points of downforce, an amount that made the car nearly undrivable in race trim. And while Hamilton wrestled with a car that was actively fighting him, the Scuderia's strategy team remained silent. The pit wall offered no solutions, no recovery plan, no clear backup. When he finally boxed to serve his penalty and change tires, the writing was on the wall. The team called him in to retire the car shortly after. But what caught the public's attention wasn't the decision to retire, it was what came after. A cryptic radio message from his engineer that some interpreted as a veiled critique of Ferrari's leadership. Short, sharp, and notably unsympathetic. Then came the real explosion. Just 24 hours later, Ferrari's own president, John Elkann, stood on a public stage and pointed the finger not at the engineers, not at the pit crew, but at the drivers. He praised the mechanics, praised the technicians, and openly suggested that some people should talk less and focus more on driving. There was no ambiguity in the message. The target was clear. And with that single sentence, Elkann had lit the fuse on a crisis of trust inside the team. All of this happened against the backdrop of Hamilton's most difficult season in nearly 2 decades. A 7-time world champion, racing for the most iconic team in motorsport, left without a single podium after 21 races. And now being publicly criticized by his own team president, the same man who brought him to Maranello. Add the Colapinto incident, the floor damage, and the engineer's radio message, and suddenly, it's no longer just about pace. It's about power, politics, and pressure, and whether Hamilton still has Ferrari's full backing, or if a fracture has already begun to open behind the scenes. Ferrari arrived in Sao Paulo with the championship table tighter than it had been all season. Just one single point separated them from Mercedes in the battle for second place in the constructors' standings. Every session, every position, every pit stop was going to count. And yet, in one of the most catastrophic weekends of their 2025 campaign, they walked away with 0. Charles Leclerc was out before he could complete even 6 laps. Lewis Hamilton's race unraveled over the next 37. Meanwhile, Mercedes racked up 16 points with a 2nd and 4th place finish, vaulting ahead. Red Bull did the same. From 2nd, Ferrari dropped to 4th not just in the standings, but in credibility. What unfolded in Brazil wasn't a result of reckless driving or isolated incidents. It was the consequence of deeper systemic fragility. In Leclerc's case, he was simply in the wrong place at the worst possible time. A 3-wide squeeze between Kimi Antonelli and Oscar Piastri into turn 1 left no margin for escape. Piastri locked up, hit Antonelli, and the Mercedes driver was sent crashing into Leclerc's front suspension. There was no driver error from Leclerc, no aggressive move, just collateral damage from the chaos around him. A wheel ripped off, a broken wishbone, and a silent coast to retirement before the race had even begun. For Hamilton, the downfall was different, slower, but no less brutal. After a difficult qualifying that left him 13th on the grid, he attempted to claw his way back into the top 10. But a sequence of events quickly turned his race into a technical disaster. The first was contact from Carlos Sainz at the opening corner, destabilizing the rear of his SF25. Then came the critical incident, a clash with rookie Franco Colapinto at the end of the lap. Hamilton, trying to defend his position, clipped the rear of the Alpine, shattering his front wing. The impact forced him to box immediately, but that was only the surface damage. What the team uncovered during his pit stop was far more alarming. Debris from the broken front wing had passed beneath the car and ripped open key sections of the underfloor of the area responsible for generating ground effect and aerodynamic grip. Ferrari's own engineers confirmed after the race that Hamilton's car was missing between 35 and 40 aero points, a number that, in modern Formula One terms, is equivalent to a full second per lap lost. That kind of deficit renders a car uncompetitive, regardless of tire compound, fuel load, or driver talent. And Hamilton knew it. From the cockpit, his messages became increasingly desperate. The radio exchanges between Hamilton and his engineer were raw and revealing. He described the car as undrivable, sliding constantly, and warned several times that he was on the edge of crashing every lap. His lap times plummeted. His tires overheated. The rear end refused to comply in high-speed corners. Despite his efforts, he continued to fall back, eventually running last. Even after serving a 5-second penalty for causing the Colapinto collision, Hamilton stayed out for 10 more laps, trying to salvage data. Finally, on lap 37, Ferrari called him in. The car was beyond saving. The retirement was inevitable. But the true impact of this race wasn't just visible on the timing sheets. It was the psychological toll on the drivers, the engineers, and the public perception of Ferrari. The team had not just failed to score, they had imploded. Their number one driver was taken out by another team's crash. Their star signing was forced to retire with catastrophic floor damage. And as if that weren't enough, internal voices within Ferrari were beginning to speak not to support, but to criticize. The events of Brazil had shattered any illusion of stability. What remained now was uncertainty, pressure, and the looming question: can this team still function with both feet inside the fire? To understand the gravity of Hamilton's retirement in Brazil, one must first understand how devastating floor damage is in modern Formula One. The underfloor of today's cars is not just a flat piece of carbon fiber, it's the heart of the aerodynamic package. Ground effect, the phenomenon that generates downforce by channeling air under the car, depends on precision-shaped tunnels and a sealed floor. When fragments of a broken front wing slice into that structure, like they did in Hamilton's SF25, the consequences are catastrophic. Not just for pace, but for balance, stability, and tire wear. Ferrari's engineers later revealed that the car was operating with a loss of 35 to 40 aero points. In practical terms, that's the equivalent of running the car with half the rear wing missing. The loss of suction meant that the car no longer sat firmly on the track. Hamilton felt it immediately. Every high-speed corner became a gamble. The rear snapped without warning. Even with adjustments to differential and brake balance from a steering wheel, he couldn't stabilize the platform. His famous late-braking style, the very thing that made him world champion, became unusable. And yet, Hamilton continued. For over 30 laps, he fought to control a car that no longer responded to input. The telemetry showed massive instability on corner exit. Tire temperatures spiraled out of control. The balance shift between the front and rear axles was erratic. His lap times were inconsistent, not because of driver error, but because the car was physically changing from one lap to the next. The damage wasn't symmetrical. The airflow beneath the car was chaotic. In modern Formula One, that level of unpredictability is deadly not just to performance, but to safety. Meanwhile, the Ferrari pit wall offered no immediate plan. Hamilton served a 5-second penalty for his contact with Colapinto, but there was no compensatory strategy, no early switch to hards, no gamble on a two-stop. Instead, he was left to circle the track in an underperforming machine, bleeding seconds every lap. It was only on lap 37, well after any strategic benefit had vanished, that the team finally called him in. The stated reason was mechanical protection. They didn't want to risk further damage to the engine or gearbox. But the message was clear. There was nothing left to gain. The failure wasn't just mechanical. It was operational. Ferrari knew from early in the race that the car's underfloor was compromised. Yet they chose to keep Hamilton on track, hoping perhaps for a safety car or a miracle. What they got instead was visual confirmation of their failure, a world champion visibly struggling at the back of the grid. For viewers, the image of Hamilton sliding wide, radioing in desperation, and then retiring to a silent garage was symbolic. Symbolic of a team without contingency. A team running blind when things go wrong. And that is not something fans forgive easily. Technically speaking, Ferrari's mistake in Brazil wasn't just about setup or luck. It was about vulnerability. A vulnerability in how the car was designed too sensitive to damage, too narrow in operating window. And a vulnerability in how the team reacts under pressure. The SF25 has shown flashes of brilliance this season. But those flashes vanish the moment the car is outside its comfort zone. Brazil proved that once again. And no matter how much talent Hamilton brings, no driver can outperform a car that simply stops working when the numbers fall outside the margin.